Welcome, everybody, to another episode of DNS Unfiltered. Today, I'm joined by Will Brooks. I'm a little bit under the weather today, so he's going to be carrying the show. But Will, welcome to the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks. I am over the weather, meaning it has been not the most beautiful here. But then, actually, it has been. It was really ugly, and then we got like these 2 days of beautiful sunshine. So I guess I'm not over it anymore. I like it now.
Yeah, it's growing on you. It's like the fall. We're here in the fall of 2025. It's beautiful here outside. I, however, got hit by the medieval plague from my young child, which we had a moment of laughter about. Will, your child's about 17 months old, so you'll
Actually,
know the pain
today,
soon. Oh, today.
17 months today.
Yeah, you'll know the pain soon. I promise you. But my first question was really about your company, Ukon, which was
Mhm.
previously Fifth Wall. So can you
Yes.
tell me about that transition and the purpose of the rebranding?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of, I think, confusion around it for a couple different reasons. So first of all, Fifth Wall was a name that nobody knew what it meant, and Ukon's kind of the same, so I guess nothing really has changed there. People would ask me, "Hey, what does Fifth Wall mean?" And I would make something up every time. It would be a different answer every time. Um, some people tried to come up with like a clever way to tie it to cybersecurity, but it's not. It just was a name. I think it was a name someone came up with. Um, when it came to Ukon, a big piece of it was we got some investment money last year to start working on an actual solution. So the name of our company was Fifth Wall Solutions, and we didn't actually have any sort of literal solution. We didn't have any tech at all. And so what we started working on was a means by which securing cyber insurance could be a lot easier for all the parties involved. And that is what the platform or the product, we'll call it the product. I don't want to call it a platform yet because it's not really that yet. It's just the product, Ukon. Um, and then as part of the desire to kind of bring everything together under one roof, we said, hey, we're going to rebrand the company as Ukon, so that there's not like Fifth Wall, but then there's this Ukon thing over here. It's kind of like how Apple just decided to name all of their OSs 26 this year, even though
Hallelujah, by the way. Like, thank
I
you.
was so confused. So it's that kind of thing, just the alignment of product and company name so that you only had to remember one thing.
So tell me about that product then, the Ukon product.
Yeah. So the vision here is we can go really deep into this, but the vision here is that cyber insurance is complicated. And there are a lot of different people who have differing opinions and different thoughts on how to make it better. But most of the time, those differing opinions and different thoughts are a person or an entity saying, I have this really good idea to do cyber insurance right, so I'm going to do this thing. And what ultimately happens in most cases is you either have uh, someone create what's called an MGA, which is effectively they get their own underwriting authority. They go through reinsurers and things like that, and they say, I'm going to create my own special kind of product that's going to allow me to write risks the way that I think cyber risks should be written, right? And that's not a bad approach. It's actually a great approach, and there are a lot of really good MGAs out there. The problem is that doesn't change the industry as a whole. It doesn't make cyber insurance easier for everybody. It just makes it more accessible for a very small group of people. Now, the unique piece of Ukon is that we are a cyber insurance wholesaler, and for MSPs, they can kind of think of it like a distributor, right? It's a company that has access to a huge swath of carriers, insurance carriers, that most insurance agents do not have direct access to. So a lot of times insurance agents have to go through us in order to gain access to a lot of these carriers. They couldn't do it themselves. And what that has allowed us to do, and we only do cyber insurance. We've only done cyber insurance since our inception in 2020 or 2015. And because of that, right, we have really gotten to know the cyber insurance space really well. In 2020, we started partnering with MSPs to really understand cybersecurity really well. And we have relationships with all of these carriers that are very good. We have direct underwriter relationships with all these carriers. And so that creates this opportunity for us to make cyber insurance accessible to the masses, not really just a select group of people. And so typically with an MGA, it's like, oh, we're going to market this towards this industry or this particular revenue tier because we figured out how to make cyber insurance very accessible to that group. Right. And for us, it's how do you get all of the players that are necessary for cyber insurance to be made simple communicating properly? So the concept behind Ukon is to say, let's make a seamless process for insurance agents to be able to approach and say, all right, we want to write coverage, but I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to write when it comes to cyber insurance. It's really confusing. It's changing all the time. I don't know what to do with it. Okay, these Ukon guys, they know what they're doing, and they're going to provide me with the know-how, the education, the recommendations on quotes, all that kind of stuff. Then they're able to pass that to communicate with the MSP to say, hey, we need the cybersecurity portion figured out. And MSPs are often confused because historically, cyber insurance applications are asking very black and white questions. And when you ask black and white questions about cybersecurity, you're asking the wrong questions, right? And MSPs look at it and they start going cross-eyed because like, well, it's kind of this, but it's not this. It's sort of this. It's this thing. It's sort of, So I'm going to write this paragraph of explanation underneath each question. And most of the time, the carriers don't even know how to make heads or tails of that explanation because they're still looking at it as black and white. So we want to be able to create the way to translate those questions to something the MSP would understand and then feed that back over to an application that gets filled out on behalf of the agent and the client and all this good stuff. So without having to bring up an entire Figma board right now to show you everything, the whole mindset here is that there is a communication problem in cyber insurance. That's really what has led to us doing what we're doing is you have carriers who are sending requirements to agents and agents have to pass those on to clients and clients have to pass those to their MSPs. So you're playing this game of telephone. Controls are being tossed back and forth. People don't know how much coverage they're supposed to carry. They don't understand what their pricing should be or could be based on their security posture. There's all those issues. So Ukon is looking to unite all of those parties in order to solve all those questions in a way that's presentable, easy to digest, and that whoever has to interact with cyber insurance can understand the portion that they're supposed to interact.
I'm imagining the MSP owner operator at like a cocktail party. And when they get past the question of what do you do and what does MSP stand for, the next question is, well, what does a managed service provider do? And the answer is kind of like, it depends. And it sounds like the answer of cybersecurity is like, what do I need? It's like, well, it depends.
It
And
does.
what you and Ukon are doing is kind of giving that industry know-how and creating a connection, like a marketplace. Is that kind of right? To see
Sort of, yeah. So we're
with
calling
who?
it a marketplace, particularly because, well, when you think of when I brought up that wholesale concept before, right? You have access to carriers you wouldn't necessarily have access to otherwise. So when you go to your local agent, you're probably going to see 3 or 4 carriers out the gate, no matter what. Like you kind of get the same 3 or 4 because those are the big ones that agents tend to write with. A wholesaler opens up access to a whole mess of carriers that you wouldn't normally see anything from if you were just writing direct as an agent. And so it creates this marketplace concept. It creates this marketplace concept where now clients have access, MSPs have access to insurance policies and quotes that far extend past those typical 3 you're going to see. And so the marketplace concept and all of it together, right, is you fill out an application. The goal here is as quickly as possible. Now, you're never going to, and I have to preface this, you're never going to completely eliminate the possibility that manual underwriting has to happen, right? If you are a risk that has had some sort of loss in the past, most of the time, especially in the past 3 years, that's like the carrier window. So in the past 3 years, if you had a cyber incident, the carrier is probably going to ask questions, right? So it's not just necessarily the thing where you could just get a quote and bind it. But that's the same with everything, right? If you've had a bunch of car accidents and you try to just go buy auto insurance, typically you're not going to find it so easily. If you have a bunch of speeding tickets, you're not going to find auto insurance so easily. Like if you live in a flood zone, you're not just going to be able to get, like I live on Long Island, and fortunately, I'm not in a flood zone, but there are still a lot of carriers that will not touch my house because it's on an island. So you have to end up going these specialty routes and you have to go through some more manual underwriting. Like that can happen, but the ultimate goal is to say, for the majority of risks, can we provide them with pricing options out the gate very quickly, very easily, based on this very specific set of questions and approach? Like, tell us about your business, tell us about your industry, your revenue, and then you just have to confirm that these security controls are in place, right? That's a lot easier to do than having to fill out this massive form about security questions and hoping that you answered it right. So if we can get the pricing and say, look, this pricing will hold if these security controls are in place, you're in a much better spot. So that's a little piece of it. And then for the manual underwriting stuff, because you're going to have that. If you have a $50 million, $50 million manufacturer, auto dealer, something like that, who historically has seen a high number of attacks or attempts, carriers are going to want to know that better security is in place. So they may ask some questions. If they know you have a history where you had a cyber incident or two in the past, they might say, okay, well, what caused that incident and what have you done to make it so it doesn't happen again, right? Like those are normal questions. I wouldn't be upset if someone asked that, but the goal is to eliminate all that grunt work that has to happen before you get there. And that's a big part of what we're looking to do. And then for the insurance agents, because what we've started doing is partnering with a network of agents across the country to say, look, historically, insurance agents haven't been writing a whole lot of cyber because it's really confusing and it keeps changing. So let's change that for them and say, we're going to provide you with what you need to know and what you need to say and how you can sell this to your clients. So rather than rather than a million MSPs coming to me looking for quotes for their client, I can help that MSP get set up with an agent who's basically a Ukon agent on the ground, local to them, who can become a referral source for them, a network for them, and that they can partner with to make sure all their clients have what they need to have, right? Like that's kind of the mindset here is let's create this ecosystem that exists locally for them. So they're not relying on some guy in New York when they live in California to address client needs, at 5 p.m. Eastern in California when I'm getting ready to go to bed. So it's like that kind of, 5 p.m. Pacific while I'm getting ready to go to bed.
Time zone math is hard. Don't
Time zones are confusing.
So I was gonna ask, like, if an MSP has, let's just call it, poor cybersecurity credit score, what are their options? Like, are they likely to get insured if those questions are answered and addressed, or is there just a no at the end of that sometimes?
It depends on the credit score reasoning, right? Like if you have a poor credit score because your security is terrible, well, fix your security and then you're probably going to get a quote, no problem, right? It's the issues of like, hey, so you use an RMM, but you don't have MFA enabled on it and you refuse to put MFA enabled on it. Like, first of all, what kind of MSP are you if you're doing that? But at the same time, let's say it's this ridiculous scenario where, well, I don't know, MFA is just annoying for me, so I don't put it on the RMM and whatever. And it's like, well, now you're setting yourself up for failure and no insurance carrier is going to touch you, right? It's like that kind of mindset where it's usually security. Now, I mean, the reality is like if you've had a pretty major loss, it's going to be hard to find coverage. The beauty of Ukon, and I mean I don't like to pitch services, but the beauty of Ukon and what we're ultimately with the amount of access we have, typically it's a lot easier for us to find carriers that are willing to write it. It's going to be expensive, I'm not going to lie, if you have a really bad credit score. It's just like how if you have a bad credit score, your APR is going to be up through the roof. But the reality is like we can find something, but we also I don't want, and this is my hope for the cyber insurance industry as a whole, I don't ever want it to just be we can find something. I want it to be we can optimize you as a risk so that the thing we find, the something that we can find is the worst option. We've optimized your risk so we can get out there and we can get you the best option out there. Like I want to see a day where carriers are fighting for a particular risk where they have to compete over you, not you have to just do all these things to even get considered.
Well, let's talk about how to get to that place for a second.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how often are you in the position of playing like cybersecurity consultant versus insurance matchmaker? Are you giving advice? Like, I'm sure you have a pretty extensive checklist of things, maybe you're following one of the frameworks. What does that look like?
Yeah, I wish I could say we followed a framework because I love frameworks. Especially like, I mean, I don't know, you get CIS IG1, like that in and of itself would be better than what carriers are offering at the moment in terms of visibility into what they're looking for. Um,
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that CAS IG1 first level basically is what is expected by most insurance carriers? Like
no,
they're
no, no, it's
say
actually often less than that.
oh wow.
So
So
it's
they're so uneducated about the cyber market. They're just like, yeah, that's good. Level 1, that's great.
no, I would take it a different direction. So it's not that they're uneducated; they know, but they're building their knowledge base of what good security is off of their own loss history. Right. So rather than go to a framework that says, "Hey, we've studied this. We've kind of created this mindset that you can be secure to this level if you do these things. You'll be at this level if you do these things. This level if you do these things." Right? How easy would it be if a carrier said, "Hey, prove you're IG1 compliant and or check this box, you're IG1 compliant, and we'll offer you pricing." Right? Like that'd be so nice. Unfortunately, the majority of carriers, we're still in the wild west when it comes to cyber insurance. Everyone's doing their own thing. There's no real relegation or regulation. Relegation is a sports term. Regulation across all these different carriers, where you can just assume, okay, this is the framework of insurance. Like that's just not really a thing. People will say it's a thing, but again, going back to what we said before, based on industry, based on revenue, based on loss history, like that all changes. And they look at a risk and they say, okay, we have our individual understanding of how this risk has historically done at their revenue, at their industry class. So we're going to provide pricing and security expectations around our own loss history rather than something like IG1 or CIS or CMMC or whatever, right? Like it's just that's part of the challenge is when you're talking to a cybersecurity professional, they want that framework. And unfortunately that framework doesn't exist, which is why, like I brought up before, you have these MGAs who get underwriting authority, right? And they say, well, I can do this better. So an MGA could pop up that says, as long as a risk is IG1 compliant and they're within these 20 different industries, we're going to provide good pricing to them, right? Like that would be a good idea. But again, you're isolating yourself to a small part of the market. Um, so that leads, you brought up consulting, right? So we consult pretty much on every single policy we sell. We don't charge for the consulting, but that because at the end of the day, selling insurance is how we make our money. So the concept of consulting is to say, look, we recognize that your risk is unique, but we don't consult. Like we're not going to come in there unless it's a really significant risk that has to have a good conversation about it. The majority of the time that consultation is not that hard. It's literally just saying, look, based on your industry, based on your revenue, we can get you pricing, but we need to see these security controls in place. This is the pricing you're going to see if you don't have all that security in place. This is where you could be. So kind of like price benchmarking, right? And then the other piece of that, and really where we've dug in, is what's called risk quantification. And it's this concept of saying, look, if you were to see an incident today based on your security posture, this is how much it would cost you over 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, 30 days. Like this kind of mindset on average, right? You can't say this is what it will cost you, but on average, someone in your industry, in your revenue tier, would see about this much in loss. So this is why it's so important to get things like security in place, like MDR or something that's going to help shut out that attack quickly, so you stop the bleeding, right? And then hopefully you can reduce that risk financially enough that you could transfer the rest to insurance. And if we can reduce that risk enough, you don't have to buy as you won't have to buy as high of limits on your policy, so you could then buy a more affordable policy, right? So a lot of MSPs we talk to are like, well, what security controls are going to reduce the premium for my client? We're like, well, let's change that conversation. Show them how the security controls can reduce their potential loss to a point where we can go buy them a more affordable, or help to have them buy a more affordable policy. That's kind of the mindset. So it's a change in thinking. And that's the whole approach that we've kind of taken.
So I'm going to harp on that one of those things you said there. It sounds like the cyber insurance, like the big guys at least, their risk model is perhaps immature because they haven't seen enough breaches to precisely quantify the risk profile of these MSPs. Does that sound about right? Like that's where
Yeah.
they're
Yeah, that's a
like they
good.
just don't have enough data to predict the loss.
It's hard, right? Because in 2020, when the whole world went remote and they weren't requiring any security whatsoever, they have a lot of loss history. But the problem with their loss history, and I think the problem, this is my own kind of um, understanding. I don't know if this is textbook, but like for me, when I look at cyber, the world of cyber, it grows exponentially. I mean, look at what is a year or two ago when generative AI, first came on the scene, uh, and look at where it is now. It's being used everywhere. It's in everything, right? So within a year, 2 years, it like exponentially shot up. That's just how all technology works. It's on an exponential curve. The problem is, I feel like insurance is still very linear in its approach. So if I'm looking at a loss history from a year ago to understand how I need to qualify risks today, then I'm missing the fact that everything has already changed. And so that's that. I don't think any one carrier is going to be able to solve that completely if they keep sticking with this idea of I'm only going to base my risks on my own historic losses. Right? There has to be this understanding and this merging of the worlds where we have people building cybersecurity products who say this works, it is tested, this is why it works, and carriers looking at that and saying yes, we want to do that. I mean, you're kind of seeing that today where a lot of insurance carriers are offering their own MDR products because they're realizing the importance of it. But again, I push back on that because I don't think that's the best approach either. Because they're like, oh well, and they're not looking to push the MSP out. I do want to give that like that caveat there. I mean, a lot of insurance carriers are terrified of MSPs because they don't control them. But at the same time, like they're not trying to replace the MSP. I think it's a lot less I think it's a lot more innocent than that. I think they're looking at it and they're saying, well, our risk tables have showed us that if people have MDR, they have far less expensive incidents, so we should just provide them with MDR. Like, oh, buy our MDR and we'll give you a discount on your premium. Great. For us, that's us covering our butts, or not us, me, but like the insurance carrier, speaking for them, that's them covering their butts. And that's where I think on the MSP it's so important that they do understand the way that insurance can play off of cybersecurity, because if they can provide the MDR product for the client, then they don't have to. If they can make themselves that cybersecurity advisor, that trusted person when all things cybersecurity comes up, then when a carrier does say, buy our MDR product, you'll save money, they're not going to be like, oh, let me think about that. They're going to turn to their MSP and say, what's this all about? Right? And you say, oh, well, you already have that. And this is what it does for you.
Yeah.
I put it on
And
there. You know?
I would hope that the insurers are not custom building an MDR. Like hopefully they're reselling something that already exists. But
Yeah.
like you said, you're like, we're in the business of selling insurance basically, which is what they are. They're not experts in MDR technology.
No,
So
and I mean I actually personally get very. I don't like the idea of buy this thing, get discounted this thing. Um I don't like that as a sales tactic for any company in any industry. And the reason being is, well, at least when it comes to like some sort of subscription based model, right? Like I'm not saying insurance is subscription, but it kind of is. I mean, you renew it annually, so you could treat it that way. But I always struggle then when it's like, if you purchase our subscription, you also get a discount on these things. Well, if you decide that that subscription you purchased stunk, well, next year, not only do you lose that subscription, you also lose all those perks you got through it. And now you have to find everything again. Right. So I almost feel like it's a manipulative sales tactic to retain. It's saying like, oh, well, if they buy their MDR through us, then they're going to be our insured. So then they're going to keep using us as their insurance provider because their MDR is tied up with us. Right. I don't love that approach. And that's where an MSP really can establish themselves. And look, when you're with me, Mr. or Mrs. Client, you have full autonomy. You're not picking your security solutions based on what your insurance carrier is going to incentivize you to keep. So one day, if your insurance carrier decides, well, I don't really like this risk anymore, and they non-renew you, guess what? Your MDR is safe. Like that's my thinking. I struggle with that even on the flip side, where you have cybersecurity companies who say, hey, if you utilize our product, then we have a special program with an insurance company that you save money for them. Because now in the same way, you're tied up with that particular company, even if they jack your rates, if they do all sorts of things, because your insurance is tied up in that discount, right? And that doesn't always work out in your favor from a real financial standpoint. And that's the difference. Is as a wholesaler, we just offer the best option every year. Like, we're going to remarket it, because at the end of the day, carrier pricing fluctuates all the time. Non-renewals happen. Things happen in the industry. So if you can keep the pricing kind of as level as you can by switching carriers, on looking at different carrier options on an annual basis, but also recognizing that the security is not tied up in them, it gives you that freedom to be flexible. And I think that's really important in the cyber world.
Yeah, I agree. There's like a separation of concerns that I think
Yeah,
MSPs really enjoy because the pieces are interchangeable. I do this with like websites. Like I never have like hosting, domain, and everything like bundled together. Like everything is separate. It's more work, but it's more flexibility in the long run.
sure. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm curious, what are some of the easy wins? So like, let's say I'm an MSP and I want to get a better rate on my cyber insurance. What are some of the easy wins that I can implement
Well, if
that
you're
are
an
going to look
MSP,
favorable?
yeah, that's a good question. If you're an MSP, the first thing to bring up is that you really should be carrying what's called tech errors and omissions coverage, and it's combination. It's uh, comprehensive tech E&O, which also includes cyber liability coverage, right? That you could go and buy tech errors and omissions and go buy cyber liability insurance separately, but you're going to be paying more. Like, you can buy tech E&O that has cyber liability built into it, and that's the kind of policy you want to buy as an MSP. And that one is a little more complicated because you're not like I don't know, a bakery on Main Street that has a point of sale system and maybe some payroll stuff tied up on your network, and then order history and stuff like that, right? Like, that in and of itself is data, but MSPs don't just have their own data, they have data for all their clients, right? Like, that's the fear point for most insurance carriers out there, is they look at an MSP and they like, you are the focal point for data leaks across all 25 of your clients, all 50 of your clients, however many clients you have. That scares them, right? So that's why I brought up before, if you're going to use an RMM, make sure it's locked down with MFA. If your clients are insistent on a remote desktop, make sure it's locked down on MFA, right? Like, there's this kind of thing where MFA is the shiny object for insurance carriers right now. I know MDR is probably the
Number two.
trendy object, but MFA is still the standard. It's like, there was a report back a couple years ago where Microsoft said that within their ecosystem, if 99% of cyber attacks would have been avoided if people just had MFA enabled. Now, I don't know how you can say that ultimately. Like, I don't know how you could say, well, 99%
You
of these
can't
attacks
prove a
wouldn't have happened if people just
counterfactual.
turned on MFA. But at the end of the day, at the same time, it is true that, I mean, 2FA, multi-factor authentication, whatever, is huge, right? It just adds an additional layer of security. And then MDR is a big one for your own personal network. So the reason I bring this up is there's the tech E&O piece, which is saying you as an MSP, you are providing security for this client base. So therefore, their risk becomes your risk, right? So there's that liability component that is just because you're doing business with them. Then there's the cyber liability component that says, hey, you as an MSP, you could also face a cyber incident yourself. So in terms of security there, it's kind of the same stuff that most companies need, right? Like, the easy stuff is MFA, backups, again, EDR, MDR, having a patching cadence. This is where carriers get weird. A lot of them say within like 30 days for critical vulnerabilities, but I'm like, that's got to be faster than that. Come on. Especially if you're an MSP. You can do it faster. So there's that. There's some other stuff too that isn't, for MSPs, it probably they would want to see it more, and for clients of MSPs, like things like a PAM solution, like, are you managing privilege? Is that the kind of thing that just everyone can download Spotify, or do they need to ask about it first? Which version of Spotify are they downloading? The actual one, or are they downloading something they found off of, I don't know, GitHub or something?
Spot-ifi.com.
Yeah, there you go. So, but it's really that the security, the bigger challenge MSPs are going to have is not the security, because honestly, I would say if you're a good MSP and you are practicing what you preach to your clients, you're probably not going to have a hard time finding coverage from a eligibility standpoint. Where the bigger challenge is for MSPs is that there's just a much smaller. So I mentioned our company, right? We're a wholesaler. We have access to over 50 carriers. And last I checked, maybe 10 of those are willing to take on MSP risks. So it's just the reality that you brought up before. Like, a lot of carriers don't quite understand the risk. And I don't think a lot of them want to when it comes to MSPs. And there are other ones who recognize, shoot, most carriers aren't doing anything with this, so we can do it. And we're going to win a ton of business because of it, right? So it really just comes down to that. Now, fortunately, there are 10 carriers in our pool that write MSPs. So it's not just one who can charge whatever the heck they want, right? They still have to compete with each other. And that's an important component. But if I would say for MSPs, if you're going to your clients and you're saying, hey, here's your security stack, you need to have all these things, and you're not practicing what you preach on your own system, you're going to struggle to get insurance. Also, it's like, what are you doing?
So real quick, if I'm MSP and I have a customer, let's say a school, and they have like a CMS student portal thing, and that vendor gets hacked, does that fall under the tech E&O portion of the policy, or is that something
Uh,
else?
no, so that's where things get a little weird, right? So they're using a CMS, they're using a student management platform, learning management system, whatever we want to call it, right? Like they're using that platform for their day-to-day operations. You're not managing that platform. I mean, you can encourage them as an MSP to say, hey, you should make sure MFA is on there, because if your system, Mr. Mrs. School person, if your system gets hacked and you don't have MFA on there, well, now that cyber criminal who got in there can get into all that information from your system. Now that school is in trouble, right? But that would fall on their cyber liability, not yours. And the other side of that is, if the vendor gets hacked, right, that could lead to other issues, but that would probably fall on the vendor's cyber liability, not yours. Unless the vendor was also your client and the reason they got hacked was your fault, then it could be a tech. That's where it get
So,
dicey, right?
so that was a bit of a leading question. How often do MSPs have their cyber insurance dialed in, and their clients have it dialed in? Is that pretty frequent, common?
Man, I talk to a lot of MSPs who know they need techie enough. So most MSPs, there's been a lot of really good education out there in the MSP space, not just from us, from all sorts of people in the insurance space. I think highlighting the importance of tech errors and omissions for MSPs, because we have a lot of them coming to us asking for it, and for that I'm very thankful. They know what they're looking for. The other piece of it, and where there's been a lot of really good education too, around making sure, or mandating that your clients carry cyber insurance. So a lot of MSPs come looking for tech E&O, and a lot of them require that their client carry cyber insurance, but the majority I talk to require it, but don't actually check to see if that's the case. And that's the biggest fall off, is it's like, you guys have a contract in place that literally says your client must carry cyber liability insurance, but then you do not provide them with any sort of pathway to help them get it, nor do you actually check to see if the cyber insurance they have is any good. There's no sort of audit system in place. And that, now granted, on the one hand, MSPs don't want to get their hands into the insurance game because that's sticky. But on the other hand, if you're putting that in there, like, why would you not verify? I mean, it's literally the most important coverage an MSP client could carry in the eyes of the MSP. Because if they don't have the proper coverage, like, here's a good scenario. So, Mikey, you say to me, hey, Will, so you take on my business, Will's Dodgeball Emporium, as your new client, right? So, I have my entire legacy built into my dodgeball company, and I'm really excited about it. And you say, hey, well, last thing, in order to be my client, you have to carry cyber insurance, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I go to my agent and I say, hey, I'm working with this guy, Mikey, now. He's my new MSP. He says I need to carry cyber insurance. Can you help me out? And the agent turns to me and says, oh yeah, I can add that onto your business policy. It's going to cost you like an extra $50, no problem. Right. So now I have cyber insurance, right? But and I told you I have it, but we haven't done anything to actually check to see if the amount I'm covering is the amount I should be covering. Right. And so what happens is I end up having a cyber incident, and I bought this crappy add-on policy that does nothing, and it doesn't cover me. So then I turned to you. I was like, Mikey, you told me I had to go buy cyber insurance. It did nothing, and now I'm hacked, and I'm in a terrible spot. This is your fault. I'm suing you.
And
Right?
and
And
Mikey, the MSP is like, sorry, our hands are tied here. We told you.
right, and it just
It's a very precarious situation because, you know, Will's dodgeball is going to try to come after me,
yes,
and I'm going to say no, but that doesn't mean I can't get sued.
you're going to get sued regardless, right? And that's where Tech E&O steps in. Is they're like, hey, look, you may have a great contract in place, and at the end of the day, that lawsuit's going to fail, but you're still going to get tied up in litigation. That's still going to cost money, and there's still going to be business time spent on that. And it's like that kind of stuff, right? And that's why you want to have a policy that's going to help you navigate that stuff. But for your client, right, for Will's dodgeball, right, the opposite of that, the other end of that, is to find yourself a good cyber insurance partner. And that's kind of what I was saying with Ukons. We want to help identify local partners for you and train them up to be that partner, so that when you tell your client they need to carry cyber, it's not just, oh, go get it. It's, hey, we're telling you to go get this. Here's the date you need to have it by. As a client, like, hey, we're going to give you a 30-day or 60-day grace period when we onboard you. You need to get cyber insurance, and we are going to sit down and review it with an agent partner of ours who can actually talk about that, because I can't,
And
I,
here
as
are
the
some
MSP,
recommendations.
yeah, because it's important. Yeah, and that agent can, and if you have questions, if you want to know what you should be carrying, we can, bring them in to talk through that too. And if you want your agent to make sure they're recommending the right stuff, bring them, whatever. Like, it's really important to that is a piece that is not a part of the MSP's world. Like, I don't want to touch that I don't want that liability on me as an MSP. I also don't want to become a licensed insurance agent. At the same time, it is crucial that their clients are carrying the proper coverage, because if they're not, it's going to come back and bite the MSP, no matter how hold harmless their MSA is.
Because the liability is already on you.
Exactly. So it's the kind of thing where that's what I mean. I was talking about my hope for the cyber insurance industry. It's also my hope for MSPs, that it's like, don't just be satisfied with requiring something. Like, do the due diligence, be that cyber advisor, say, hey, I'm going to sit down with you, and we're going to make sure that you are carrying the right coverage. I'm going to bring in someone who can advise you on that, because you're not licensed, right? Like, it's that kind of mindset.
So that was kind of one thing that MSPs can kind of get wrong about cyber insurance, like the requirement of their clients. And not just the requirement, but the due diligence portion of that, to making sure it's adequate. What are some other missteps you see MSPs taking in the cyber insurance world?
I mean, that's the biggest one. The other one, I mean, this is going to sound funny, right? I've talked to a lot of MSPs who say, oh, I don't want to even talk about cyber insurance, because, again, that's not, there's the whole liability fear thing. I ran into that a lot. I did some road shows with Huntress last summer, and the number of times that I got up there to talk about cyber insurance, and one of the questions I got was, can I really be talking about this? Like, I don't want to get sued from my client because I talked about the word insurance. And it's like, bringing up the word insurance is not something that you're going to get sued for.
It's like, now that they've heard the word, they're liable.
Exactly. Every single contract out there, like, if you're a builder and you want to win a contract, if you're a manufacturer and you want to win a contract, like, every single one of those contracts requires insurance, and they even put limits in there. They say you have to carry insurance up to this limit, and a lot of times you have to negotiate that limit down because it's exorbitantly high. And it's like, if I went and bought that much insurance, I would spend more on the insurance than this contract would pay me. Like, that's stupid stuff, right? But there's like, no, most companies do not mind bringing up insurance in contracts, but then you have MSPs who are like, I don't even want to talk about it with my clients. And it's like, no, you really should. You should have an entire QBR dedicated to that insurance renewal season. And that doesn't mean you're sitting there and saying, well, you guys should carry 3 million in limits because of your revenue. Like, you're not recommending anything, but you're saying, hey, look, it is 90 days before your insurance policy renews. And last year, we were filling out an application the day before your policy renewed, and everything was chaos. So we're going to meet now, and we're going to talk through your cyber security posture. And I need you to go to your agent and get an application now so that we can make sure that you're answering those questions properly and use it as the touch point with the client. And I think that's where you talk about where a lot of MSPs struggle is it's not so much with the insurance itself, it's just with the sales component and the personalities component. And like, you have this ability to stand apart from every other MSP out there by just saying, hey, look, we have a dedicated meeting once a year where we're going to make sure your insurance renewal process is a lot smoother than it has been in the past. We're going to talk you through the security and all that kind of stuff so that when your agent comes and knock in with that app, you already know what you need to do. Like, let's work through that, right? You become an advisor, you become, and you're establishing a relationship with your client that's not just I'm trying to sell you tech every time I talk
It
to
makes
you.
you so much more valuable in
Yeah.
their eyes. So actually, that was going to be one of my questions too. So you talk to a lot of MSPs, and I'm curious what keeps them up at night. Obviously, I think cyber insurance does keep them up at night, but they think willful ignorance will save them. But let's take insurance off the table. What are some things that MSPs say regularly that is making them nervous?
Yeah. It's hard for me not to think of insurance. But one thing that does keep them up at night, it's not really insurance. It's related to insurance, is what I brought up before, of insurance carriers selling their own security services, because that creates a sense of competition. And if you're an MSP who's particularly bad at sales, that can bring a lot of fear, right? It's like if you're not, like we just talked about, if you're not establishing a regular cadence with your client just to check in with them and talk with them and show them, like, create pathways forward that aren't just, hey, I'm here to upsell you, then when someone else comes along with a cheap alternative, they're just going to jump on it, and now you do have something to fear because you haven't established yourself. I often think a lot of anxieties that keep us up at night, a lot of fears that keep us up at night, are self-inflicted. It's, and that's not always the case, obviously. Like, you could also have the, hey, I'm using an RMM, what happens if my RMM gets breached? Well, yeah, that's something scary. It's going to keep you up at night because that can really mess up your whole business. That's happened before. That's the reality. But the majority of anxieties I see when I talk to MSPs tend to be more around that, like, competition side of people outside the realm of MSP trying to play the MSP, and not wanting to lose clients because of it. And I think that's a fixable thing. That's something that we shouldn't have fear around. We should look at it and say, well, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make sure that this doesn't happen. And I'm going to create that relationship with my client that makes me inseparable.
Those things that keep you up at night should be motivators.
Yeah. Most of the time. I mean, there
And I
are
can
things
see
you can't control.
yeah, for sure. And I could see the appeal of being an MGA, like you mentioned earlier. Does that stand for like becoming an agent yourself, basically?
Sort of. It's like managing general authority. It's a fancy phrase for saying that you have the ability to take on some risk yourself and write policies based on your own kind of underwriting metrics.
Yeah. So that is, a potential avenue. Another avenue would be someone like Ukon to kind of help you navigate those waters. The MSP turning anxiety into potential revenue is a really great idea. So
Yeah.
just think of those things that scare you and write them down. Maybe make a plan for Q4 2026. Let's talk about another anxiety point. Or go ahead.
I know. I think I mean, honestly, as an action item, that's a fantastic exercise to say, okay, what are the things that keep you up at night? Write them all down, look at them and say, okay, which ones are literally out of my control? But then which ones can I actually control? And if I control them, are they going to make me a better MSP and more desirable by a client, a potential client or a prospect or something like that, right? Like, you can turn the anxiety into a weapon. I mean, not anxiety itself, but the result from it. I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah,
I love it.
great
That
exercise.
was definitely like a clip. Anxiety as a weapon episode title. Uh, but another piece of anxiety that I see is, and you've mentioned it a few times, like that sales motion. Like MSPs, tech people, not really great at like putting ourselves out there and getting on the phone and making sales and talking to people in a way that is easily understood by the other party. But you and I guess, you have a podcast. You do a lot of outreach for Ukon and previously for Fifth Wall. So, like, how important do you think it is for the MSP? Let's just call them personalities to be accessible and public.
I mean, I think it's important. If you're, I mean, most MSPs, not all. I mean, there are some that are multi-state. They're really huge. But the majority of MSPs we talk to are themselves small business owners, and there is something to being a small business owner that is present and engaged in your local community. I'm not necessarily saying like you need to go join the Kiwanis Club or be part of the Chamber of Commerce like as one of their board members. Like it's not necessarily on that level, but um small business owners often rely on referrals to win business, right? And so when it comes to insurance, I think this is probably one of the best business opportunities is if you can get yourself engaged in like a local networking group. Before I came to this company, I was working as a financial advisor and I hated it. I would never go back to that. But at the weirdest job ever, you literally walk into a business and you have to effectively find a graceful way to say, how much money do you have that you want to invest with me? Like that's weird career. But for me, some people are amazing at it and I have a great financial advisor. So there's that. But the reality is like either way, when I was in that role, like I joined a local networking community of different people in different industries to say, look, we can pass referrals back and forth. If this comes up that someone's looking, who do I send them to? Right. And if you can partner yourself up with a local agent and be an insurance agent who knows cyber really well, I think that's the key, right? A lot of MSPs enter into these networking groups, partner with the one agent that's a part of it, and that agent's terrible at cyber insurance. And then you have a one-way referral system that stinks, right? But if you can get that cyber insurance agent up to speed, or that insurance agent up to speed with what good cyber insurance sales and advising and consulting is all about, then you have a friggin' awesome network between the two of you where you can really, really expand how your clients understand and live in this world of cyber. So there's that, but then there's also just the reality of local engagement in the community, and I think that can be hard for a lot of MSPs because, I mean, we're the nerdy people who were playing with our computers when we were kids and learning how to break stuff and put it back together, right? Like the internet would go down and our parents would say, "What'd you do, Will?" Right? Like that was kind of our mindset back then. So it's like to get out and engage in our community can sometimes feel a little daunting, but do it. I mean, if your local Chamber of Commerce has a street fair, be part of the street fair. If like be engaged, do things, get people put your face out there. I think that's super important.
So, you have, I think you have your feet in multiple communities, the MSP community, but also you have to pay attention to the insurance community.
Big
So,
time.
do you ever do talks and education for that side, the insurance people?
Yeah, I mean that's a huge part of our company here is to engage cyber insurance agents, and I kind of brought it up earlier, but like make them help them get to the point where like they feel confident in selling cyber insurance and give them a pathway through Ukon to easily get their clients' policies put in place and provide their clients with all the knowledge and understanding they would need to be sure that the policy they're getting is right. Um, Ultimately, that's where we're going to see the most success is if agents and MSPs are working together locally, utilizing the Ukon ecosystem to sell security, to sell insurance, like all those things to understand what insurance is requiring so the security stack can align with those requirements, and then the agent partner can come in and say, hey, we can go through this Ukon application process. It's going to be really easy for you because your revenue's here and your industry's here. We can get you quotes pumped out today. We can even get you coverage tomorrow. How seamless that can be, because everybody involved in cyber insurance, agents included, tend to hate it because it's so complicated, right? So our goal is not just to go to MSPs and say, let's educate you on a bunch of stuff. to say, hey, let's educate you on this stuff, but then also here's an agent who you can utilize whenever your client has that insurance need, so that you can be confident that your client is getting the right coverage for them. Again, aligning with those MSA requirements and whatnot.
I'm picturing my like news feeler. So I'm like looking at certain Reddit communities and our company chat here at DNS Filter and like just different blogs that I read. But you're like, what are you seeing on the insurance side? Like, what are agents asking and what are insurance companies asking you? And what do you see like coming down that we should all be aware of on the security side?
Question. So I'll start with agents. Agents just need clarity. I mean, that's really what it is if you think of it this way, right? Like a lot of agents have been in the insurance field for 25 years, right? And for only about 7 of those years, maybe less, cyber insurance has really become a viable product for them to sell. It's like, I don't want to, I've been in this for 20 years. I don't want to learn another product that is constantly changing on me. Like, why? So that's why so many of them opt just to add it on to those as endorsements, but then it ends up being terrible coverage, right? So they're actually putting themselves at risk. So for agents, a lot of the questions is just, help me understand how to explain this to my clients. Help me know how to know if the option I'm providing them is the right type of option. Um, Help me know what these coverages mean. Like, really just walk me through this. Like, what does it mean to have comprehensive cyber? Like, how do I translate that to a client? Like, it's that kind of stuff. So when we go to agents, when we provide them a quote to give to their client, we don't just give them a quote. We're giving them a quote. We're giving them education. We're giving them that risk quantification. We're giving them that gap analysis, all sorts of stuff. Not gap analysis. That's going to the MSP. We're giving them the risk quantification and the price benchmarking. It's like, hey, you're here because you're not very secure. Go to your MSP, deliver this thing, get this secure. You're going to see a lower rate, right? Like, it's that kind of mindset. We want to help them sell that cyber in a way that doesn't mean they have to become an expert, although we would love for them to be. But let's provide, because insurance, I think you talk about what keeps MSPs up at night. A lot of agents, I think, are up at night because they're expected to be the expert. I mean, they are the ones selling insurance, right? So it's like, I'm not going to sell cyber if I don't feel confident selling cyber. So we want to help boost their confidence. When it comes to carriers, I mean, the thing that carriers need right now is data. Not data like all this information about your cookies and metapixels and all that kind of stuff. They just need to know, like, okay, what sort of, a good example is, I mean, I brought up Huntress before, but there have been times where we've had to go to bat for Huntress because carriers say, oh, well, what's this Huntress thing? What's a Huntress? They're not on our MDR list. And I was like, well, let's tell you about Huntress and why
Yeah,
they
like
matter.
they should be.
They should be, right? It's like that kind of mindset. But carriers without enough data, if they don't have enough clients who have Huntress, for example, or Blackpoint, for example, they're not going to all of a sudden just add those to their approved list. So if we can get more and more of our clients to get policies with carriers who have Huntress, who have Blackpoint, like those kind of things, that's going to boost the carrier's knowledge of who those vendors are. And then they're going to see over time, oh, well, everyone who had those they never saw an attack that lasted more than X amount of minutes or whatever, or cost X amount of dollars. They're awesome. We want to add them to our list, right? So like for us, it's not so much what are carriers asking us, it's what we want to give carriers. If we can show carrier, and that's what we really try to utilize our vendor partnerships for, is like, if we partner with a vendor, we're like, look, we're probably not gonna be able to pass you leads just because of the way that our company operates in the insurance world. But what we can do is, any clients that come to us that have your tool, we are now building this data pool of how few of them have ever seen an incident to our carriers. It's that kind of thing. So that's really where the benefit to the carrier, that's our hope, is, but because we access so many carriers, can we give them the data they need to see if a vendor is worth the risk to them.
That's a really great service, actually. I'm glad you guys are working on that.
Yeah, but it's a long
Well,
road. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I've brought up before, carriers are looking at data from 2 years ago, so it's like, all right, we're getting there. It's going to take some time.
well, we do have some time, so Godspeed, Will and team. So I appreciate you joining me today, carrying me. I'm still a little bit rough under the weather here, but I really do believe, Will, that you and your team are like a bridge between these two worlds. And I'm really happy to see you guys in that position. I think you're going to be good stewards of the cyber/security relationship,
Yeah.
the
Dude,
cyber
thank you.
insurance relationship.
Yeah. Mikey, it's been really fun. And it's just, it really is an amazing opportunity to blend worlds that on paper should be best friends, but in reality are currently at odds with each other. So it's fun creating that pathway. And that's what we're all about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me, Will.
Yeah, of course.